reflecting the same info. So this one for visualization, this is for procedure.
Okay. Great. That's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I did. Okay. Thank you for
Very nice.
Yeah, we still like I show up and then scrambling. Maybe
No, I
just
just like start.
I hear those.
No, I
Band,
literally go. Like I can type
Well, my class is like
I didn't change it on my
You gonna trade them? Might be. Yeah, I think we're gonna trade tables. No, we just can't end the bag. No. We'll just trade tables, right? If you is this one?
Oh yeah, because that one's shorter.
Because that one's shorter, so we'll just put that one here.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Always nice understanding.
You're kidding.
No worries. This is what it was for me. Okay, got it. Oh, you got it.
Right? No different to us.
Well, look at I feel like. What questions do you have? No? Okay, what are the 4 assumptions for repeated measures ANOVA?
Independence, normality, homogeneity.
Same 3 questions. Sure. The other 3 questions. What's the last one? What's the difference between a randomized design and a mixed design? What's a randomized design? That's a design we've been dealing with all the time. Until last week. That's where you have like 75 people you randomly assign 25 to treatment, on treatment to treatment. So standard, that's called a randomized design. So it doesn't do anything fancy about it. It's random assignment to treatment or to groups. So what's a mixed design? The treatment and control and repeated measures. Where you have a between subject factor, usually treatment control, and repeated. So it has a between factor and a within factor. So it's called a mixed design. Does everybody call it a mixed design? No. No. Some people just call it repeated measures ANOVA, And then you have to read the description to find out if there's a between subject stuff. And the term mixed design is used for when you have a within and a between factor, but it's also used totally separate thing when you have fixed and random factors. So you're going to have to read to see what they mean if people say mixed design. It's either going to be repeated measures with between factor, or it's going to have fixed and random factors. Same word. Okay, what's the quality? If we have a statistically significant interaction between the subjects factor and the within subjects factor, what do we do? Statistically significant interaction, what do we do? Report it. Report all of the numbers. First, report the main effects for both the between and within, report the interaction, and then how do we follow it up? First, we probably do a figure, so we interpret the interaction, and then what?
Interaction of post hoc or a contrast. Do you do a post hoc or a contrast?
If we have a significant interaction, then if we had post hocs or planned contrast in mind, can we do that? But we have to do them at a simple level. So whenever there's an interaction, then you move to simple level. If there were post hocs or planned contrast, especially planned contrast, we're going to do them. But because of the interaction, we then move to simple level. So interaction always means that we end up somehow segregating our data. So sorting by level of, and sort by the level of the factor of less interest. So that's usually what we do. So treatment is mostly of most interest, so that's not what we're going to sort by. Can we? Yeah. Well, maybe treatments are standard and we're interested in gender differences. And so then we sort by treatment and look at multiple t-tests for gender differences. Okay. So today I think we're going to finish talking about repeated measures ANOVA. And I'm going to start talking about the next design, which is called a block design. The next week we're going to start ANOVA, analysis of covariance. So on Monday we got to about here. I showed you some ANOVA language. Don't really recommend using it, but you can. So how do we do this? If we have, is this a mixed design or is this a one-way ANOVA? Repeated measures ANOVA. Mixed design, and you know? You're going to control and then you have 3 times 8. So we have repetition for the within subject and we have between subject factors. So that's a mixed design. So click the variable into where they're supposed to be. So this is actually pre-post follow-up by treatment. And here's the greenhouse gas or epsilon. Can we assume for the recipient?
Yeah.
Why?
It's about 0.7.
Here is the result, some of the results. The means, and we are paid for the means. Yeah, we want to take a look at the distribution of scores and the post test. That came a little strange. And then this is what I really don't like about SPSS, but it's the way it is. We have the within subjects effect. And then we have the between. 2 separate tables. I want you to put them into one. When you report in your dissertation or your journal article, it's going to be one table. Yeah.
Do you leave the term as error? Or you changed it to?
That's a good question. So what do we, here we can assume sphericity. So we're going to dump these 3 lines, and these 3. But we're going to keep sphericity assumed for time by group, and its error. The error term is different. We're going to add, dump the intercept, add this line per group with its error term.
You don't have to change it to say within or something like that. You can just say error.
No. So how am I going to change this? I'm not going to tell the reader which is within and which is between. I'm going to drop the type 3, just call it sum of squares, change this to p-value, get rid of the non-centrality parameter, and insert power. So I think I want an effect size somewhere too. So get the effect size. So I want effect over this. So make those changes and we should be okay.
Is there any way you can post an example of that, since it's like dropping columns, dropping rows, adding tables together? Any way there's one of those available to refer back to?
And this is on Canvas. So this is an example of just data. It's a data analysis with a table the way I want it to look. So I'd rather have treatment at the top, because that's usually the most important. So people are going to look at this top to bottom. So I want to know something about treatment. Oh, the effect size should be here too. So treatment with this error term, time by treatment with this error term. Only one line. If I had an adjustment to make, I would talk about that in where?
What if the velocity is not satisfied?
Why is sphericity?
Yeah, what if that not satisfied? It's lower than 0.75.
No sphericity here.
I know not here. I mean, if we use the data and then if the
Sphericity is not satisfied?
yeah, it's not satisfied.
Okay, so where do you put that? I don't think you put that in the table. It will show up in the table because you'll have decimal degrees of freedom. But I would put that in your text. So you'll say that on examination of the greenhouse geyser, epsilon, it was 0.5, therefore sphericity was violated, and so the whatever adjustment was used. So I think I would write that in the text.
I tried the data of the one of the core data to name it. That first is only 0.58, something like that.
So it's violated.
So we just put those justified numbers.
In text.
Okay.
Yeah, because you don't want the table to be messy. You want people to be able to actually look at the table and understand it without incorporating 5 other things in your thinking. So I think I would put that in text. So in text, you'll say, assumptions were tested, and while HLB, normality were met, the sphericity assumption was violated on the greenhouse geyser epsilon equals 0.5. Therefore, pick your adjustment. The greenhouse geyser, the wind belt, the lower bound, pick one of them. You can look at all of them, but you pick one. You report one. So which one would you report? Which one would you use?
One
Do you feel like being conservative?
lower
Do you feel like being more powerful? So there's not a rule about which one to use. So if you want to be more conservative, do lower bound. If you want more power, do greenhouse. And greenhouse guys is but this is what the table is going to look like. So you have different error terms. You have an error term for treatment and a different error term for repeated. And why is that? Oh, that goes back to those expected mean squares, where we had different components of variance for the between terms than we did for the within terms. And so we have a different error term for the between terms than for the within terms. Okay, so this is what I would like this to look like. David?
Got it. Yep.
Okay.
So probably APA format, right?
APA format would be great. I'm not counting off or on or off for APA format. So this is what it's going to start out looking like. So it's going to start out looking like a mess. And you want to make it prettier. Put it all together and make it prettier. Get rid of the stuff that you don't need. Don't need that stuff. Add in effect size.
Should we leave that little comment about the alpha?
Comment about alpha. No, that one's not. I don't know. Imagine it's not. So merge them into something that looks like this. And here, in whatever these are, we have a statistically significant interaction. So the tables that I'm going to present next will have a significant interaction. First, it's going to be the ANOVA summary table, merged with and in between. Then we have a table of mean, standard deviation, sample sizes, just like we did before, nothing new. Then we have the figure, significant interaction. So we have a figure. No significant interaction, we don't need a figure. But if we have a significant interaction, the next thing we see is a figure. Then, and here's a figure. For your homework, you don't have to edit this thing out of SPSS, but if you're doing a dissertation, thesis, article, you're going to have to edit it. Unless you're doing an online journal, in which case you can potentially use a color. Here's some more syntax for an interaction contrast. And then remember to think about type 1 error. So if you are doing follow-ups and you have, say, 2 planned contrasts, I have pre-post follow-up, and I have 3 treatment groups. They have a 3x3 design. I'm probably going to compare pre to post and potentially post to follow-up, maybe 2 planned contrasts. If there's an interaction, I'll do that for each treatment, potentially. So I have 2 planned contrasts, but I'm doing them 3 times. So I'm doing 6 tests. So whatever type 1 error control you want, and what are they? We've talked about 4 of them. They were what? On Benchita, Hofer, and Benchmead. Okay. So what does this look like when we have a data set? So here's one of the big data sets from Canvas. So big data. For all these big data sets, I have variables that have a 1, 2, 3 after them. Those are the variables you want to use. And I'm asking you in the homework to use treatment. So that's the between subject variable. So the homework involves running an analysis for a mixed design. Okay, so what do we do first? First we have those assumptions. We have what get normality like. Like how do we get normality? Explore. And now we don't have to split the data. We have different variables. And so the data are effectively, we already have repeated measure level 1, 2, 3 as separate variables. So we can run explore by treatment on those 3 variables. And get this. So are we okay for normality? Can you see that? You see those little numbers? So skewness for individual mentor for baseline pretest is minus 1.39. Is that okay? Of course, it depends on what standard you're using. So my standard is 1, so maybe I'm going to want to look and see if there's an outliers there. So negatively skewed, so what does that mean? Draw it. So negatively skewed, the tail points in a negative direction. So like that, tail points that way. Okay, so too much, minus 0.83, that's okay, minus 0.19, that's okay. Minus 0.46, okay. Oh, 1.37, positively skewed. Yeah, good. Skewness, 2.43. Minus 0.53, 0.1, minus 0.3, 0.6, and minus 0.02. So some of them are really normally distributed, and others are, the skewness is a little bit extreme.
So you just determined, did you have treatment as the factor?
I did, okay, yeah. So I'm getting skewness by cell here, but because it's repeated, we don't have to do that split plot thing. So let's take a look at some of the plots. That looks fancy. That looks better, but still match. Okay, so what you're going to do here for homework is just say normality was violated. Otherwise, you're going to be running and running and running. Another case is going to show up as an outlier. So what you want to say in homework, if you run into problems with violation of normality, is normality was violated. Is normality a major assumption? No. No, it's not. We have a severe outlier, that's not a good thing. Why? Because it pulls the mean, which changes the area, so it changes the total from the square, changes everything. So it'd be nice to look for extreme outliers, but I need to work on my big data. Get rid of some of the non-normalities. I'll do that for next year. Okay, So just saying normality was violated, it was. Maybe for which cells? Okay, so normality, so we look at normality. And then how do we get HOV? What do we look at for HOV? What was that test? And we get that when we run it. So we're not going to get it before we run. How do we do that? Analyze, GLM, repeat it. We do, but we can't get it until we actually run it. It's part of you. So I think I'm going to call this TAR. It has 3 levels. We're going to add, then we have to define it. So the definition of those 3 variables, those last 3 in state 4. The between subject factor is treatment. I want to get a plot. So which one should, what should I put on the horizontal? I think time to me makes sense to put on the horizontal. And so that means treatment goes at separate lines. I don't think it, to me it doesn't make sense to do the reverse of that. Options. Usual stuff. Can I do contrast? Well, I can, but unless I know there's an whether there's an interaction or not, it's not going to make sense. So I want to run it first and see if there's an interaction. Okay, we have our table of mean standard deviation. Now we have something called boxes M. This is a test of the equality of variance covariance structures. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to highlight it and I'm going to delete it. When I get to multivariate test, I'm going to do the same thing. Highlight it and I'm going to delete it. In the spring, if you're taking multivariate, you're not going to do that. You'll get to the next one and then you'll delete that. So now we have modulates. So greenhouse gases are epsilon 0.742. Are we okay for sphericity? Good. So that's all I need to say. So far. We have the means. So let's look at the assumptions first. We violated normality. We have sphericity. How about homogeneity of variance? Everything less than 0.05. We have a violation of normality, a violation of homogeneity variance, but we have met the assumption of sphericity. So we have our initial sentence for the write-up saying we violated normality and homogeneity variance. Sphericity could be assumed, and then what? Then we have another clause or piece of a sentence that says, however, in the presence of a balanced design with sufficient sample size, ANOVA is robust with respect to violation of normality and homogeneity variance. And that's true. So if we're being thorough, we can say that. Okay, I have another bit of information here called test of within subjects contrast, which is a trend analysis. So I'm going to highlight that and I'm going to delete it. So now at least I can see the within and the between in the same screen. So we can assume sphericity, so which line are we going to use? The top line, the sphericity assume, get rid of the other 3. Everywhere you see them. So we are going to have a table with only 3 lines in it for the within. And I can also get rid of this piece, If I do that, then I can match up this table to that one. It will have the same number of columns. Then I'm going to add this one probably at the top. We're going to intercept the treatment with its error term. And then I think I'm good.
What would you call that table?
The ANOVA summary table.
You see.
Yeah,
You don't have to say two-way or anything, you just say ANOVA summary table.
I just say ANOVA summary table. Clean up the capitalization. Change sig. Change type 3. So clean up the table. And now can I report the name effects directly? No, why not? Everything's significant, including the interaction. And safe data, we have these enormous effect sizes that you will never see again. I'm just deleting it. Or this thing, Callie, it says tested within subject contrast. Oh. And it says linear and quadratic. That's trend. So I don't want this. Unless I have repetition over something like equally spaced time or dose or something, then I can look at trend. So that's not what I have here. And there's my figure, which is pretty darn strange. So control, well, actually, okay. Control is flat, weightless control is flat. Individual mentor has no post, nothing has an effect post-treatment. But it does at follow-up. That's interesting. So what sorts of things might you be interested in here? So we have 4 treatments, 3 times. Well, 2 control groups and 2 active treatment groups. What might you be interested in? You'd have to be interested in something. Treatment versus control. Okay, now we're at simple level, right? This is interaction. So we're interested in the contrast between treatments and controls. So how do we do that? Sort of one-way ANOVA. If I'm interested in treatment versus control. Treatment's a factor. I've got 3 separate time periods, so I have persist 1, 2, and 3. And my contrast, treatment versus control, the coefficients were 1, 1, -1, -1. The contrast gives me treatment versus control, or time 1, time 2, and time 3. So I have simple level contrast. We expect the contrast at time 1 to give us significant results. Probably not. If this was random assigned pre-treatment, so probably not. If we got significant time 1 contrast between treatment and control, something's wrong. It's very sad that something went wrong with our study. So we do not want significant effect at time 1. How about time 2? That's post-treatment. Yes. How about time 3? that would be great. So let's see what we get. So what do we have? Now we have a contrast. Then we have the one-way ANOVA at time 1, 2, and 3. Here it SPSS nicely reminds us what our contrast is, what the coefficient for. So I have the treatment, the active treatments versus the 2 control treatments. And then we have the contrast results. Oh, and I did not get HOV. I should probably do that, right? Let's get HOV. But maybe not at each time. So let's see. So, okay, yeah, HOV was, yeah, that was the same as before. So, HOV violation. So, here are the results of the contrast. So, which one are we going to use? Assume equal variance or do not assume equal variance? Do not, because we violated HOV. So, that contrast at time 1, we did not think it was going to be significant, and it's not, with the P of 0.39. At time 2, we thought it would be, but it wasn't. With the p-value of 0.15, but at time 3 it was. So which side had the higher mean? How do you find that out? That's direction of effect. So where were the means? Now we're just looking at time 3. Which had the higher means? The 2 treatment groups or the 2 control groups? The 2 treatment groups? Time 3, the only one that's significant. We had a 4.77 to 7.5 compared to a combination of 3.5. So the treatment groups have higher means for whatever the time variable was than the control groups at time 3, but not at time 1 or at time 2.
Will you say that one more time? Please.
Yeah. So we didn't want to have a significant at time 1. We didn't get it. So
Just the sentence that you said.
The means for the active treatments were higher than the means for the control treatments at time 3, but not at times 1 and 2. So we have our simple main effects. Here, we have a one-way ANOVA by treatment at each time. Those are the simple main effects. But if I have a planned contrast or 2, I don't absolutely need to report them. Planned contrast supersedes the one-way ANOVAs in importance. The planned contrasts are higher than most things. Okay, so what else might I be interested in? Which treatment? So this tells me that the active treatments are better than the control. But now which treatment? So that's another contrast. So let's go do another contrast. So we have to compare means. I have one contrast, and then the next one I have 1 minus 1, 0, 0. And now the computer nicely reiterates for me what was contrast 1 and what was the second contrast. Still had violation of fiduciary variance, maybe not for those 2 groups, so if I'm being really picky, I can go back and check that. But let's say we're going to not assume equal variances. So difference between treatment 1 and 2 at time 1, no. Difference between treatment 1 and 2 at time 2? No. Difference between treatment 1 and 2 at time 3? Yes, surprise, surprise. Could you have told me that from looking at the video? Yeah, you could, but you have to also supplement with the statistical information. You can't just say, well, obviously, look at this picture. You can tell, yes. And I'm down to 1 degree of freedom, and I've done how many contrasts now? 2 times. I've done each of them 3 times. Right? So I've done 6 contrasts, all told. So what should I do about type 1 error? Ignore it.
For the homework is already
Correct for it. Just ignore it. No. You're in the wrong room here. That's across the hall. So, whatever you want to do. So, take your pick on is it going to matter? It's not going to matter what you do. So, not the first one. We've got p-values of nothing. Nothing. I mean, they're not going to be significant no matter what. And then the contrast of the treatment versus control and treatment 1 versus treatment 2 are going to be significant no matter what we do. So use the easiest. Use fun from. Now, are you supposed to do it that way? No. You're supposed to decide in advance how you're going to approach this and then follow through with your plan. Not look at the results and say, well, what the heck, fun from is good enough here. Okay, so this analysis presumes that I'm interested in the differences in my treatment. What if I'm not? What if I'm interested in the differences across time for each of the treatments? Then what do I do? I'm interested in pre-post follow-up for treatment 1, treatment 2, treatment 3, and treatment 4. So then what do I do? Well, then we're doing, conceptually we're not doing anything different, but mechanically it's going to look different. If I want the difference between pre-post follow-up for treatment 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm going to split the file on treatment. So how do I do that? Go to data, split file, on treatment, it blinks at me, and now it's split by treatment. And I want pre-post follow-up, so I'm back in repeated measures. But now it's a one-way. It's not a mixed design anymore because I have just used treatment to split the file. Now I only have treatment 1, treatment 2, treatment 3, so it's not a mixed design. So let's continue to call this time. So it has 3 levels. Identify my variables, do a plot or not. The plots are going to not be so interesting here. They're going to either be straight lines or they're going to be lines that increase. Options, same stuff. I can click on homogeneity. I'm not going to get anything for that. I only have one group. Because I click the file, but let's see what SPSS says. Now let's get this just to show you how boring they are. You click OK. And there it says, homogeneity specification will be ignored because there are no between subjects groups. Because I split the file as treatment, so I only have one group at a time. Not a mixed design. So it's a warning. Again, my table of mean standard deviations. sample size, multivariate tests, which I again highlight and delete. Now I have matchlets. Why do I have 4 matchlets? I only had 1 before. Why do I have 4 now? And it's split by treatment, so I have 4 different analyses. So can I assume sphericity? Okay. Sometimes. So how am I going to talk about that? I'm going to say sphericity was this can be assumed statement of assumptions for treatment groups and for control groups. So sphericity was violated, actually it's sort of a minimal violation, was violated for the treatment, the active treatment, that could be assumed for the control treatment. Let me do that in a second. So I have to actually tell them what the numbers were. Dissertation, yeah, you'll tell people what the numbers were. The journal article, no. We'll just say it was assumed for this, but not that. But we have a violation for individual and group measure. So which one should we use? It's going to matter. Here. For individual and group measure, we have a violation, so we should use an adjustment. Does it matter which one we use? No, we're still going to get statistical significance. So I don't like lower bounds, so I'm going to use that. It's the most conservative. So maybe you want to use that, but I'm probably going to go with green testing. And report that. Delete all the other ones. For individual mentor and group mentor, and then for control and weightless control, it's also not going to matter. There's no difference. Report follow-up for either of those 2 conditions. So use sphericity assumed. Report the calculated squares. So this table is going to be reduced to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines. So you have the effect, error for each of the 4 treatments. And are we done now? Once we've done that? So then we know whether there's a significant main effect of time. We know, based on this, whether there are differences over time or not. Are we done? How many degrees of freedom do we have at this point? 2. So if we have a significant main effect of time that we do for individual and group mentor, we're going to need to follow that up. And how do we do that?
Post-hoc and mentor.
Post-hocs, we're not going to be able to get on, we're not going to be able to point and click them, but they are going to be a version of post-hocs, but it's not going to be the point and click version. And here's our pictures, fairly boring pictures. And not really very interpretable. This goes from 3.98 to 3.99. The SPSS, these all look like they're major effects somewhere. Well, there aren't. This one goes from 3 to 8 as a scale. This one goes from 4 to 6, 4 to 5. But these only go from 3.9 to 3.86. So SPSS fills the space, changes this, and changes the scale. So the pictures are not directly interpretable. So they look like there's a big major effect, but there's not. Okay, so we're not done. We have 3 levels of time. So how would I go about comparing? What do I want to compare? Do I want to compare pre to post? post a follow-up again? Does that make sense to you? Free to post and combination of post and follow-up? Or everything to everything pairwise, so 1 to 2, 1 to 3, 2 to 3. So if I'm thinking that I don't have a plan here, then I'm going to do something that conceptually is like a post hoc test. But it's not going to be point and click to get being power any of those, because those are, we only get those if we have between group. We don't have any between group statistics here. We only have one group at a time. So can't do that point and click under one way. So how are we going to get our comparisons?
Is the term pairwise and cell by cell synonymous, or they mean different things?
They mean different things. If we had a cell to cell analysis here, we have a 4x3 design. We have effectively 12 cells. I would add another variable that listed the score for each of those cells, which would not be easy to do. If it's a randomized design, it's repeated as well. Then I could compare cell 1 to cell 7, and cell 2 to cell 6. But here it's not, we're not going to do it. So, how do we get that pairwise in here? That to compare means that now we have paired samples. We have the same people at time 1 as time 2 as time 3. So, and we still have the file split by treatment. So we're still at simple level. So now we're at something that's equivalent to a simple post hoc level. So I'm going to compare time 1 to time 2. I'm going to compare time 1 to time 3. And I'm just clicking the variables 2 at a time into the paired t-test. And then I'm going to compare time 2 to time 3. So I'm going to have 3 paired t-tests times 4 treatments. I'm going to have 12 statistical ones. I already have the main effects, the simple main effects. And now I'm going to have the pair, what's equivalent conceptually is the first time. We get a bunch of information here, which is the mean, standard deviation, standard error. We get the correlation between time 1 and time 2, time 1 and time 3, time 2 and time 6, which can be interesting. Then we get the significance. So first is time 1 to time 2 for individual mentor, not significant. Time 2 to time 1 to time 3 significant, time 2 to time 3 significant. And now we have, these are t-tests, so we have 1 to 3. So this is it. Now we're done.
We don't have to do all the time, but just go through it.
Well, here the simple names were not significant for the controls, and so I've covered those two guys. I would just do, or I would, it's easy enough just to run and just ignore it. So, significance for individual mentor time 1 to 3 and 2 to 3. For group mentor, difference between 1 and time 1 and 2, 1 and 3, and 2 and 3. So now we're going to have to interpret directions of effect for each of these as well. When we get significance, and none of the rest are safe. Now, would I do both of these? So what we did effectively was split the data by time and did one-way ANOVA on time 1, time 2, time 3, and then did planned contrast at each time. This way, we split the data by treatment and did one-way repeated measures at ANOVA for treatment 1, treatment 2, treatment 3, and treatment 4, followed up by paired t-tests. Conceptually, we're not doing anything different than we did with homework 3 with the factorial design. Mechanically, it looks different because of the repeated tests. Jen just not. Okay, so everybody good? So can you do this? Sure.
So do we do both?
Do you do both? Generally not. Generally the focus is going to be either on time or on treatment. And so you decide which you focus, which is more interesting. Not to say that any of these data are interesting, but which is the more interesting. So do you want to practice with doing one-way ANOVAs and pair t-tests and split the data file by treatment and say your focus is on what happens over time? Or if you want to go back and do those contrasts and say the focus here is on what are the differences among treatment at time 1, time 2, and time 3. Anyway, probably not both. Questions?
Bill,
I'll just run with it. Okay, you want to see that again? Can we hear Brandon? That was, well, some people are looking at my dog now. So, we need it for the part. Yeah, yes, that's why I'm not doing that.
So, excuse me. So when we do the paired sample t-test, do we have to report this big table or just say the results in text?
Well, you're going to report that table of mean standard deviation by cell. And so I think you don't need to repeat that. So you can just say which was higher and which was lower. Ron, am I answering your question?
Yeah, I mean, do we have to present this table with the t-value and
Yep.
significance?
Not the table, but you're going to have to support what you say if it's a statistical test. So this is the same question. This is the question that you get when you have those post-hoc tests, game pal or 2P or Shifei. You have that huge table. If you have 24 test results to report, are you going to report them all? And think about a concise way of doing that. Maybe that's referring to a table and just saying for individual mentor, it was higher at time 3 than time 2. For individual or group mentoring, the time 3 score mean was higher than the time 2. See table 3. So whichever is the most concise and understandable. So that's one thing, you need to be able to run the analysis, understand what you get, and then report it in the statistics haiku form. And the wording is very restrictive in reporting quantitative results. So you don't want to be too creative here. So I don't know. So the answer is I don't know. Do whatever you think makes more sense. Okay. Okay, let's take a long break, an extremely long break. That would be 11 minutes. That last time was slow, this is going to be quicker. I've already looked at normality and it's more or less okay. This is the PhD writing data. So there was one normality where skewness was just a hair over 1, so I'm going to call it relatively normal. So our first step is repeated measures, time with 3 levels. We have the last 3 variables on any of the data file, treatment, between. Get all the options that we need, make decisions. In a plot, again, I'm going to put time on the horizontal axis. Delete what I don't want, which is the multivariate stuff. Delete all that. And now I have my nice table of mean standard deviation sample size. Greenhouse guys are epsilon 0.7. Are we okay for sphericity? So sphericity assumed. I have the within subjects effects, the two effects times time of treatment, those significant. Contrast, no, response, delete. Again, HOD violated, and the treatment effect is significant. So significant interaction. Well, plots again look weird, but look very similar to the before. So now, decide. Do you want the focus to be on treatment? So are we looking for differences by treatment at time 1, time 2, time 3, and contrast? Or do we want to know whether there's a difference across time for treatment 1, treatment 2, treatment 3, and treatment 4? Which one? Differences between treatments over time 1, time 2, time 3. Then those mean that we are going to have 3 one-way ANOVAs with any contrast we want for follow-up. So now we're at simple look. So we don't have to split the file because we can just do each variable separately. And that takes care of that second factor by treatment. Contrast, same as before. So compare the treatment, the active treatment to the other two. And then compare the two treatments to each other. Seems to make sense. And read all this stuff. So mean standard deviation, HOV is still violated. Here we have no difference across groups, across all 4 groups, at baseline or year 2 that there are in groups. We have violated HOV, so let's go with does not assume variances result. So for time 1, we have nothing. For time 2, nothing. And for time 3, for both contrast 1 and contrast 2, we have significant results. So then, to interpret that, we look back at the means to figure out which has a higher rate. And we don't. That was pretty fast. Okay, good.
Dr. Green, what did you say planned contrast supersede?
When we have a planned contrast, the interest in the contrast supersedes the interest in any main effect. Simple or overall main effect. So contrasts are a big deal. Yeah.
Would you always look at all of them, or could you just look at one?
Usually you look at all of them. Good question, but usually you do the same thing for everything, and then probably add words to the effect that we expected this to be not significant. So it supports our hypothesis. Okay, now I have some questions that we're going to go over on repeated measures that we're going to go over together. And for For some reason, I brought question checklist. Oh, look at that. These are not my questions. I just found these somewhere. Okay, question 1. Repeated measures design will be an especially powerful tool when? Which one? Which one would you pick? A, B, C, or D? Which one would you not pick?
A.
A? Michelle, what else would you not pick? B? What's between B and C? I'm not really sure, so I'll pick B. And I don't know. I can argue A and C. Let's go with B. Problem 2. This one I have more confidence in. A problem with the repeated measures design is that not A, not C, and not D. I'm going to go with D. Often suffers from, I don't know, that makes more sense to me. Number 3, a repeated measure of ANOVA is just like a dependent or paired samples t-test except. Okay. Is A true? There can only be one independent variable? No, that's not true. So eliminate that. There can only be 2 levels of the independent variable? No, that's not right. There can only be 2 levels of the independent variable in the dependent or paired sample t-test. Well, that's true. Not like pre-post. So let's think C maybe, but D. There are no differences between, really, there are no differences between repeated measures ANOVA and the dependent samples t-test. I hope there are, or we just wasted the last one. So let's go with C for that one. 4, when conducting repeated measures ANOVA, various independent measures are broken down into which of the following. Now we go with intern, right? And repeated measures ANOVA. So which one? Not A. Not D. Do you ever have between plus total? Have you ever seen that? No, that doesn't look right. So that narrows it down to C. Let's go with C. So between plus subjects or between A plus A by S. So we split the between into pieces. Actually, the between gets split into the subjects piece. I don't like any of these. 5, when conducting repeated measures ANOVA, and put a dot after the N. Otherwise, it's really not clear. So N dot refers to what? N dot. Degrees of freedom plus 1. Yeah. So N refers. If it wasn't for the dot, it would be the total number of subjects times observations. So it would be the total DF plus 1. So let's take the dot away and move it as that number of subjects or levels of the repeated factor, which makes more sense.
Number of subjects.
Number of subjects. So or if it's n, it's probably number of subjects. If it's n dot, it's total df plus 1. And it's the total number of observations. So df, total df. That's good. That's good. 6, in a mixed design. All subjects participate in all levels of all variables. Well, that's nice, but that's a cross design. B, all subjects participate in all levels of the between subjects variable. Well, that's never the way it is. That's like impossible. Bless you. So B is no. A is a cross design, B is just no. C, all subjects participate in all levels of the within subjects variable and one level between subjects variable. That sounded good. Okay, so C sounds good. D, all subjects participate in one level of the within? No, no, no. 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 So C. 8, within subjects 7 apparently was really bad for some reason. I don't know why, I don't remember. 8, within subjects factorial design, so it's factorial. A requires more participants than a between subjects design. Well, that's why we're using a repeated, isn't it? That we don't have to read as many people. So no, not more participants. B, assures equivalence of groups at the start of the study. No. If we have random assignment, maybe, but then why would we have random assignment? If it's a treatment factor at the start of the study, that makes sense. But if it's sex, age group, we're not randomly assigning. So that's not sufficiently generalizable. So it's not A, not B. So let's see what C is. It's long to carry out in between sections. Well, yeah, because you have to have pre, post, and all. You have to see people multiple times. So yes. Number 9. Which of the following is correct in its design? A, includes both within and between. Is that true? That's true. So that looks good. Includes both ANOVA and chi-square. Includes manipulated and non-manipulated. Well, I don't know. Maybe. So A. Okay. 10. What's listed in the first column of the ANOVA summary table?
Sum of squares.
Source. Yeah, so that's C. 11, which is correct. If there are no significant main effects, there can be no significant interactions. Is that true?
No.
No, not true. B, whenever significant interactions are found, there must be significant main effects. No. Whenever significant main effects are found, there must be at least one significant interaction. No. Okay, so not A, B, C. When both significant interactions and significant main effects are found, interactions are interpreted first. Correct. Always. In the interaction, you interpret the interaction. 12. For repeated measures ANOVA, which test is recommended that can make adjustments for the number of pairwise test multiple comparisons that you need to know about? Yeah, it's like the only one that you can use to make adjustments. Greenhouse gases, no. Essentially. Okay. 13. When reading the SPSS outputs recommended, you interpret which row the output for repeated measures of those. Use diversity assumed, use greenhouse gases, use on-phone, which is yes, non-CSS. Or there are no set recommendations. Should you always use diversity assumed? No. Should you always use greenhouse gases? No. There is no von Kronenberg. So that rules out these CMPs. I'm going to go with A.
Question.
David.
Going to 11, so like in the wording of a paper, you don't say the interaction, there's a main effect in the interaction.
No.
You say there's a significant interaction?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And probably, depending on how long the paper is, if it's very long, like dissertation, then you would say, you would repeat your variable. So there was a statistically significant interaction between treatment and age group. Because you're faculty reading and you're going to forget from page 5 to page 50. 14, ANOVA is to blank. As repeated measures, ANOVA is to blank. I think by single sample t-test here, what I think they mean is a paired sample t-test. That's what I think they mean. It's like a one sample test. Could be wrong. I don't think it's A or B. Oh. Repetition. So I think it's C. One study, and I'm going to assume this is number of people, uses ANOVA, another uses repeated measures ANOVA, which study design has more power. Repeated measures. Why is that?
It's really fun to send people over them.
More observations. We have at least 2 observations per person if it's repeated. So again, went from 47 to 94. So more degrees of freedom, more observations, and reduction of the error term. So more. Okay. So blocking.
Ooh. No, that's the no,
So let's do a little bit. About blocking. So just an introduction to. We're not going to spend a lot of time with blocking. I'll I think on Monday. Yeah. Okay, so why did we do repeated measures? We did all the basic stuff with ANOVA, the assumptions, one-way, follow-ups to one-way, factorial, follow-ups to factorial. And we did repeated measures, added sphericity, and it's basically conceptually the same stuff, it's just mechanics for a mixed design. So why use repeated measures? It makes sense to in one way, but another reason is because we get more power with repeated measures. So again, the context, my context for this is, for the College of Education, is working with doctoral students, particularly in school and psychology, who do not have the resources to do national recruitment or the time to wait for 2 years until they get a larger sample. And so when we have a smaller sample, how do we get more power? So one option is repetition, have a pre-post, and we've doubled our N. We've doubled the number of observations, so we get more power. Another mechanism for adding power, which is different than repeated measures, is to do something called a block design. A block design is just a factorial design. So we have the say we have the factor of interest, say it's treatment. I don't have enough power. I'm going to randomly assign people to treatment. Say I have 4 treatments and I have 40 people. So I have 10 per. It's really not enough. Just a ballpark minimum sample size per treatment is 15. Minimum. So I don't have enough power. So how can I increase the power? Now suppose repetition is not an option. If it is, that's great. We can use it, double the sample size of the other post. But suppose it's not. So is there something else I can do? Something else that I can potentially do is add another factor. So I have effectively a one-way design. I'm just interested in differences across 4 treatments. I can add a second factor, not because I'm interested in it. I'm not interested in the second factor I'm going to add, but I'm going to add it because it will explain part of the error term. So I have a second factor where I know that factor or scores on that measure, if it's a measure, are related to my outcome. So if my treatments are treatments for something fluffy or something.
Yeah.
So, well, now I'm going to insult people if I do that. So suppose that my outcome is liking, something about liking for big dogs. I have a measure of liking for big dogs. That's the outcome, that's the dependent variable. How well do you like big dogs? What's related to that? What correlates with liking for dogs?
Extroversion.
Oh, extroversion, okay. Okay, and how do I know that? Because I've done a literature review. So I've done a whole extensive literature review about why people like big dogs. And I find that there's consistent literature that suggests that the correlation between extroversion and liking for big dogs is significant, statistically significant, and really moderate to high. So I don't care about extroversion as a factor in the studies, but I can get scores from everybody in the study on the measure of extroversion. Now this is a measure, we have scores, not categories. But this is ANOVA, right? We don't deal with scores, we deal with categories. And so I take those scores and I chunk them into categories. So I have the lowest category, the next. So I have categories. Now I have, how many treatments do I have? 4? I have 4 treatments, yeah? I don't know exactly what they are that relate to liking for big dogs, but I have 4 treatments. And I have extroversion. If I put blocks, if I create blocks, I have this continuous measure from high scores to low scores. I'm going to take the top 4 scores, I'm going to say that's block 1. And then within block 1, I'm going to randomly assign one of those people to treatment 1, another one to treatment 2, another one to treatment 3, and the last one to treatment 4. And that's block 1. I don't care about the block main effect. Well, the literature says it's really strong. It's a strong correlation between liking for big dogs and extroversion. So I don't know that I need to show that again. So it's been shown 25 times. So literature, I'm going to go on in the literature bit. So I have people lined up from high to low. The 4 highest are in block 1. The next 4 are in block 2. The next 4 are in block 3. All the way down through my 40 people. The bottom the people with the lowest scores in extroversion are in block 10. 10 blocks. Within each block, randomly assigned. I don't care about the main effective block. I don't care about the block-wide treatment interaction. The only reason I'm adding this complexity to my study, it's going to add complexity. I have to measure extroversion, and I have to line everybody up, and I have to randomly assign. So it's going to make this study harder to do. But the only reason I care is that the block main effect is going to chew up part of the error term. So what's that going to do for me? The error term is going to get smaller, and so my F ratio is going to get bigger. So I've added power. So exciting. So it's a special purpose factorial design for use with treatments. You're not going to probably do this with variables that are not manipulated treatments. So we add another factor, and that factor is added specifically to reduce error variance, to add power. I don't care about it. I'm not interested in it. The only reason I'm making my life more difficult is I need more power in the study, and that's the way to get it. We also make the treatment groups more similar, right? That block 1 were people who had really high scores on extroversion, all 4 of them. So the factor that I add has to be related to the outcome. If that factor, if extroversion, if those 25 studies were wrong, and extroversion is not related to lucky for big dogs, then this is just a disaster. This is not going to work. It's not going to work. It's not going to do anything for me but make it harder to do this study. It's not going to help me. So it has to be correlated, preferably fairly strongly correlated. Not super strong, not 0.9, but 0.6, 0.4, I'd be happy with that. So there are different ways to do blocking, but one of them works and the other doesn't. So for it to work, we have to block beforehand. So it's called a priori blocking. You want to take a guess at what the second type is here? Post-hoc blocking. That doesn't work, right? You block after the fact, and you're lucky if you got the top 4 people on block 1. It's not going to work. So a priori blocking. We assess people at pretest on some measure here with extroversion. We line everybody up from high to low, low to high. We know which group, we know the person's score. So we create blocks, and we have as many people per block as there are treatments. So if there are 3 treatments, I'm probably going to have 3 people per block. I could have 6 people per block. And we'll see what the implication of that is. Then I randomize people to treatment. Randomly assigned to treatment. There's another, a whole different purpose for using block design, which is a procedural check. And we'll talk about that later. So, how do I run this? It's just a factorial design, so it's just like what you have already done for assignment. Just a factorial design. The only thing different is I'm specifically picking this variable to increase power, not because I want to know whether the results generalize or because I have any interest in it, just to increase power. So if we did this design, I have some stimulus and I have some blocking variable. If I have more than one person per block treatment combination, so we have 4 treatments, we have 40 people, I can assign 4 people to block and 1 person for treatment. Then I have no within term. Then I have 1 person in block, 1 treatment, 1. I have no within term, so I have no test for block by treatment or block. I could assign 2 people. So I have 8 people per block. Now I only have 5 blocks, but I have 40 people. So, which is better to do. But if I assign 2 people per block treatment combination, then I have a within term. It's not very stable, but I have a within term for each cell. And then I can test the block and the block by treatment. So is it at all interesting for me to test the block main effect and the block by treatment interaction? If really my purpose is to increase power, I probably am going to be better off with 10 blocks, 4 people each, than 5 blocks, 8 people each. Why is that? Well, with 10 blocks, I have 9 degrees of freedom per block. I have 4 treatments, so 3 degrees of freedom per treatment. 3 times 9, 27 degrees of freedom for what's going to end up being error. If I have 5 blocks, 4 treatments, I have 4 times 3, or 12 degrees of freedom for the error term. Would you rather have 27 degrees of freedom for an error term or 12? 27. I never want to have an error term that has less than maybe 10 degrees of freedom, but 27 sounds a lot better than 12. But then I don't get to test the block main effect and block entry. So it's going to look the same. It's just factorial design, so it's going to look the same as it did for homework 3. In this particular instance, there's no interaction. There's a main effect of block, thank heavens. This is what we're expecting. This is why we are using this design. There's no main effect of block, and we picked the wrong variable and just made our life harder. It didn't help us. And a significant main effect for whatever the treatment was. Number of seconds of exposure to visual stimulus. Oops, sorry. So what's the variable that we're going to use to block people? Usually it's a continuous variable that we categorize. So it's a variable that's correlated with the dependent variable. It has to be or simple. It could be a pretest. It could be a pretest. But it has to be collected before we assign people to treatment. So it's going to add a little bit of effort to our study.
And just wondering in terms of study design, because I was thinking with the using or don't have much of this, and if you're doing this process, or you know how many participants. Yeah.
Oh, we can't. We have to have our participant pool and measure whatever the block measure, whatever we're going to do for blocking there, which could be a pretest. And then block, and then assign to treatment. So we have to know what our sample is before we can do this. Wrong.
And doing this over the course of a study, there's a chance that if you have, say, 40 participants, 1 or 2 of them can drop out.
That's too bad.
The world's blow up at that point. Like.
No. It might if we have one person per block treatment combination. Yeah, then it's going to blow up on us. So then it turns into, there's a whole book, an entire book. Right, you think this class is like enough information maybe? Yeah. Well, there would be like level 2. That's not what I want to hear, Becky. Level 2, there's a book, a whole book called Analysis of Messy Designs. Yeah. And if I have a block by treatment design and suddenly this block treatment is missing, Yeah, then it's sort of, for our purposes on SPSS, we're totally blocked. So we're gonna have to do something. So that's a message. So yeah, let's go on. If we have 2 people per block treatment, then SPSS is gonna object, but it probably would still do it because then we have no variance for some of the cells. If we had 3 and we lost 1, then we're good. So creating a pretest where we have to select the people and we assign to treatment and do all this blocking stuff. We can do post hoc blocking, but it doesn't work, so don't do it. So we line everybody up on the blocking variable. 999, 876, etc. We can create blocks after the fact if we are really supremely lucky. So if you want to let your dissertation research rest on being lucky, then you can think of post hoc blocking. So we're not likely to get balance in the design with post hoc blocking. So post hoc blocking is just not. So efficient. The design as power if the blocking variable is actually correlated with the dependent variable. That's why we picked it. Based on literature that says it is. So I expect that. The sum of squares for treatment is actually smaller than it would be with a randomized design, but we're pulling a big chunk out of the error term. And so that reduction in sum of squares for treatment is going to be overcome by the bigger reduction in the error term. It has fewer degrees of freedom than in a randomized design because we're going to be using the block by treatment for the error term. So that's going to have fewer degrees of freedom than we would see in a randomized. But the treatments are more careful, it's more controlled. So our treatment groups are more matched. We have a better match across treatment groups than we would with a randomized. So we have more power. We can assess the block by treatment if I have more than one person per block treatment combination, so fewer blocks. And they're useful if we have scarcity of subjects. We get more power from a smaller set. That's why I would consider a blocking design. Why not? We have to get the block, we have to get information on blocking. So that's another step. It's crucial that we pick the right variable. If the blocking variable doesn't work and we continue with this blocking design, we actually lose power. So it has to be correlated. That blocking variable has to be correlated with the outcome. We're not doing non-parametrics, but there are non-parametric alternatives to most tests that we talk about. Now, why do we use the block by treatment? Well, because we're thinking of blocks as random. I don't have any particular cutoff for who's in block 1 versus block 2. I'm just taking the highest score that I happen to get in that sample. So blocks are going to be randomly created. They're going to be systematic, but the actual scores that people on block 1, block 2, block 3. I have no rationale for that. If I did it again, I'd get different blocks, different numbers. So I'm thinking that blocks as a factor is a random factor. So just like in that repeated measures design, what was the error term? It was subject interacting with, so it was the S by A. That was the error term. Here in a block design, it's the block by treatment. Interaction is the error term. Not a within term. If we have a within term, we may not have it. So the expected mean squares look like this. If we have within, if I only have one person per block treatment, I don't have that. that if I have fewer blocks and 2 people per block treatment combination, the error term for block by treatment is the within. The error term per treatment, which is the focus, which is when I'm trying to get more power to test, is the block by treatment. The error term per block is the within. Questions about that? So how do I know what the error term is? For treatment, it has to have that and that, but not that. So that is that one. What's the error term for this? It has to have only that and not that. That's different. So how do I write those expected mean squares? With that. We will be writing them. So my F ratios are mean square treatment over block by treatment, mean square block over within, and block by treatment. If I only have 1%, if I maximize the number of blocks, get the most power, I have no within term, which means I don't have this and I don't. So that's saying that. So how many blocks should I have? As I have more blocks, the block by treatment has more increased freedom, so I have more power. If I have a large sample size, I'm not sure I'm going to bother with this anyway. If I have a large sample size, then it's not as important. Blocking is more powerful than a randomized design if I pick that blocking factor appropriately. Blocking is actually more power than ANOVA under some circumstances. And ANOVA is my first choice usually. I'm probably gonna, when I design a study, I'm probably not gonna automatically think of blocking. Blocking is awkward. ANOVA is not awkward. ANOVA, you just add another measure at the time of treatment. You don't have to block and then look at the scores and line everything up and then randomly assign. People come in, you randomly assign them to treatment and say, by the way, would you fill out this measure of extroversion? And I can use that as a covariate. So my first choice is not going to be blocking. It's going to be ANOVA, but we'll see next week ANOVA has, well, how many assumptions did repeated measures have? 4. And ANOVA has 7. 3 of which are stops. So ANOVA is a little riskier. I always want backup. If I'm planning on ANOVA, I want to have some backup. So blocking can be more powerful under some circumstances. An alternate ranks method is a non-parametric. Okay, so that's essentially blocking. So it's just a factorial design. We've already done that. But it's that factor is picked for a particular purpose. Not because I have any interest in it, but because I want to increase power. It makes my life harder because I have to measure it, line everybody up, create the block, and then assign to treatment. Okay, that's going to take some operational cooperation from the participants in the study. Okay, so that's one purpose for blocking. We can have a priori blocking or post hoc. Just forget post hoc, it's just not going to work. So a priori. There's a whole second purpose for blocking that has nothing to do with power. Nothing to do with it.
Blocking on our repeated measures design too.
Could do. We could do, and that would, we would increase power in 2 directions that way. So we could have treatment, we could have pre-post follow-up, not enough cases by treatment, and then add a blocking factor to even further reduce the error term. So yeah, you can combine these ideas. So another purpose for randomized blocks, which has nothing to do with increasing the power of the design. I can treat a block as just a replication of a study. So if we check on experimental methods, we check on the process effectively. So suppose we have 36 people, 3 treatments, we're going to randomly assign 12 people to each treatment. 36 people, 4 groups of 9 randomly assigned to each treatment. If I have 4 blocks of subjects randomly assigned to block and randomly assigned to block, not systematically. If we systematically assign the block, I'm using that to increase power. Randomly assigned to treatment, randomly assigned to block, do I expect a significant main effect of block? I have randomly assigned people to block. Do I expect a significant main effect if I randomly assign people to block? Mm-hmm. Well, suppose that I have 3 blocks of people and I'm running the study. And the person who's actually operationally running the study for the first group of subjects is Mark. And the person who's running the study for the second group of subjects is Beth. And for the third group of subjects is Sarah. Am I going to get, should I get no block main effect? That is, should I get no differences between those randomly assigned groups of people? Well, I shouldn't. If they're randomly assigned to block, I shouldn't get any differences. I shouldn't get a main effect of block. But what if, who should I pick on now? What if Sarah is trying to help out the researcher and trying to get good results for the study? I mean, the researcher wants treatment 1 to win. And treatment 2 to 4 to lose. And Sarah knows this. So in some subtle way, Sarah might actually influence the results of the study. Or if the operational mechanisms, if the instruments are not calibrated properly. And so when Sarah runs the study, everything's fine, but then something goes off, like a scale, it goes. So you weighed this much at the beginning, but because the dial got twisted a little bit, at the end you end up weighing 5 pounds less. So between when Sarah ran the subjects in the morning and Mark did in the afternoon, and Beth did in the evening, the calibration got messed up. Then they might get a block main effect, and that tells us that there's either an experimenter effect, which I don't want. I want there to be, I want to look at treatment. I don't want this to be experiment effect, or there's a instrumentation effect. But there's something wrong. There's something wrong in my procedure. So that's another way to use blocks as just another, like running the same study 3 times or 4 times. I don't expect there to be any differences. The treatment effect should be the same across those groups of people if I randomly assign people to blocks. So that's a check on mechanism, and we don't want a significant effect of blocks. Totally different. If I'm using block to increase power, it's systematic assignment, and I want a big effect of block. No block by treatment interaction either. I don't want any of that stuff if I'm checking on methodology. If we have 40 people and 4 treatments, and I want to reduce error variance, I want more power, how would I assign people? How many blocks would I create? People, 4 treatments. And my purpose is to max the power of the study. How many blocks can I have? 10. That's what I do. Don't get a main effect block, don't get blocked by treatment, but I max the degrees of freedom for block by treatment. That's maximum power. If I want to check if I have 100 people and 4 treatments, and I want to check on experimental control, how many would I assign to each block? Just checking to get even numbers. 5 blocks maybe? 2 blocks? 5 blocks? Depends on how many people I have to run the study. But I'm not going to have one person per block treatment. I'm going to have a whole bunch. I'm going to only have 2 or 3 blocks. 90 people, 3 treatments. I want to max the power. How many blocks can I have with 90 people and 3 treatments? 30. So I'll have 30 blocks. That would be maximum maximizing the power. If I want to test the block by treatment, I'm going to have fewer blocks, at least 2 people per block. If I have 160 people, 4 treatments, and I need to have at least 8 people per block to test the block by treatment, then I have 20 blocks. So I have to figure this out before, so I have to know what the sample is before. Okay, questions on blocking. It's just a factorial design, hit the factor so it correlates with the outcome, and prepare for additional work in doing the study. It is 6 o'clock, so we have 20 minutes of class left. You can either depart, or you can start working on homework 4. And next week, Monty will give us an example of blocking. Okay, so your choice. Okay. Start working on homework 4.